Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to Tyngsborough TV Live. This is our Friday wrap-up. I am Steve Brogan, the Town Media Director, and as always, if you want to watch this broadcast, you can watch it on the multitude of places that we put it on: YouTube, Facebook, tyngsborough.ma.gov, and on Comcast 8 Verizon 29 here in Tyngsborough. With all that said, we've got a few things we're going to chat about today. I've got my guest today, Chief Rich Howe. He's here to talk about a few things that are going on in the community. Some breaking news, also an incident that happened very recently, a rather tragic incident, unfortunately, but also a bright side to it, some silver lining to where we can hopefully maybe prevent some of these incidents in the future, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But anyways, so thank you, Rich, for joining us today. Before I forget, too, I want to mention that there's a couple of things coming up in this week. Number one, if you have a Christmas tree and you want to get rid of it, the two drop-off locations, you can bring it to the Tyngsborough Highway Department or to the former Council on Aging over on Lakeview Ave. You can drop those there and get rid of them. And also, the Master Plan Visioning Session is happening this coming Wednesday, January 9th at 7 o'clock over at Old Town Hall. I'll be broadcasting it on Facebook and on Comcast 8 Verizon 29. However, they are requesting that everybody comes down and be there in person because they want to hear your opinions on what they want, what you want to see the town do in the next 10 years, for the next decade, basically. One of those big things being maybe, new public safety buildings, there's obviously a number of things, but how to develop the town, zoning issues and all kinds of different things, parks and trails and you name it. Basically everything from A to Z, soup to nuts. They want to hear what your take is on what the town should do over the next decade. So with that said, I have my guest, Chief Howe, here, and one of the things that we've been chatting about a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and you're going to be making a big push for in the very near future, is the need for a new public safety building, a combined police and fire structure to house both of you, because the buildings you're in right now, as we've talked about before, are very old and becoming outdated even quicker than anybody can keep up with, unfortunately. So
yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Steve, and
good morning,
everyone. It is time, and obviously it's something that we are bringing forward, and we need to articulate to the community the need. I am in favor of a public safety building versus solo buildings.
So as opposed to individual fire.
Yeah, first of all, there's a lot of savings involved in the project, so it just makes sense from a financial standpoint. But secondary reasons is we are the public safety apparatus and the fire department and police department. Although we do different things, we do work together. And communications, which is out of the police department, works for the police, fire, ambulance service, etc. So it just makes sense from a standpoint of a community service. It's one-stop shopping for the community. I think the vision, it's going to be a strong one. The communities that have done it and built a public safety building, it ends up being a great place for the community as well. And it's a 40-year commitment. Typically, the buildings being built and the code they're using now is part of a 40-year plan. So that's a long commitment to make for the community. People
considering the cost, definitely.
Yeah, and absolutely. And the fire department was built, my understanding, the original fire department on Kendall Road was built in the 50s.
So you're talking almost 70 years now.
Yeah, the current police department, which was built in 1987, but people also have to remember that it was built primarily with donations and volunteer work. And that's fantastic that you can get a community to take part in that. But you get what you pay for sometimes. And,
right, sure.
And what's happened is there's certain things in the building. That was only anticipated to cover 20 years, that building, the police department building. We're over 30 now.
Wow.
So it's obviously seen better days, but beyond just the some of the exterior and look of it, interior of the building, the size of it, the inability to meet certain standards, law enforcement standards, federally and state accreditation standards, certification standards, etc. It's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And one of the things that we're going to need to do in the absence of getting a public safety building is we're going to need to pour in a lot of capital into these buildings to not only maintain them, but to improve them to meet the standards that we need to meet. My opinion would be it just doesn't make any sense to do that. Now is the time to do what other communities have done, build a public safety building, commit to that.
Well, fixing those would be Band-Aids, basically.
Yeah, and I do believe, I've gotten a lot of feedback over the last, I started this conversation over 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I became chief, and there's a lot of support in the community. It's our job to communicate and articulate why it's needed, but I believe that that will be well supported within the community, and we can show very valid reasons why we need it.
To play devil's advocate, are there any drawbacks to having a combined public safety building? I mean, I can't think of any.
Cops and firefighters really don't like each other very much.
There'll never be any donuts left.
I'm saying that for a good friend of mine. Yeah, we'll be fighting over the donuts. It's a good one, Steve.
Yeah.
I don't see the drawbacks. I see it as...
I just asked that because
I've never seen it adversarial. There's obviously a separation anyways, even in a public safety building. What I envision is you come into a lobby as a resident of the community, and to the left you'll see a police department and an entrance if you're going to be let in the building. To the right, the fire department, and they're going to be it's a different type of setup anyways. They're mostly the garages for the vehicles, and then obviously they have a smaller agency and a smaller administrative area, where ours is just the opposite. But then in the middle, you have communications. The communications works for both agencies. We need a community, what I consider a community room, but a training room where we can do our own internal training. To me, that will be right there. That will be something that the community can also book and use as well, if it's not being booked by the police department or fire department for training uses. So there's going to be a lot of uses, from a community standpoint as well. But I really don't see the drawbacks. I've talked to numerous architects, designers. There's a significant cost savings by building one structure, one footprint. Your electrical system is together. You're building on one specific foundation, and there's a lot of things that are not end up being redundant, elevators, etc.
Right. And there's a lot of cost savings there. When people don't understand how much an elevator costs, like it's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. And I think anybody could probably pick on some reasons why we'd want to be separate. I see it as nothing but a positive, and from a pure financial standpoint, and the just how it's going to work for the community, to me it's a no-brainer.
I feel like to the average person to look at that, it does make sense. It's not one of those you have to like really reach out to like see that making sense, because you're right, infrastructure, all of this stuff, we're looking at costs right now for the building that we're trying to put together for the PEG Center. It's unbelievable. Some of the costs. I mean, HVAC and electrical alone is a ton of money, and then you add in lifts or elevators, and I mean, when I tell you guys an elevator is expensive, go call an elevator company and ask for a price on a basic elevator, and you're going to be floored at how much that costs. So you're right, it saves a lot of money. It makes good sense. Plus, at the same time, where Tyngsborough, to have the two together, you can put that in a centrally located part of the town, so they're equidistant to either end. You don't have to run fires not on the opposite side of town, or it just makes sense to me. It really
Absolutely.
does.
No, I agree. And there is some. We're more and more looking into combined training for certain things, and all of those things kind of come together and make it even more of an answer, to be honest, that we are working together. We're in the same space together. To me, it's a good thing.
And so we've identified an engineer already, correct? You went through the process.
An architect,
excuse me, an architect.
For the initial, basically they're looking at some, we've given them 3 primary sites that we are looking to evaluate to see which one makes the most sense. Obviously, each of us have our own opinions of what we think, but we're looking for the pros to tell us what makes the most sense for the community in a public safety building. They look at everything from the size of the property that we're looking at to infrastructure needs, etc. We picked out the architecture firm. There were several really good firms and good proposals brought forward. But I was one of the board members with the town administrator and the fire chief, and that the town had approved a $30,000 allotment to hire an architect firm last year's town meeting. So that was the funds that we used to hire this company.
Okay.
So this company is going to come back to us in sometime in early April, and with their findings, and then those findings will be brought forward.
What other towns have done this recently?
Well, there's numerous. I mean, in the area over the last 5 to 10 years. Yeah, I have a list. If you just,
I mean, we know Chelmsford did. They're combined.
Chelmsford's done it, but I mean, there's numerous. Groton, Littleton. There's many others in the area that have done, or fire departments. I know Westford's building a fire department now, but it's separate.
Right. Yeah.
But as far as the public safety building itself, there's a few different areas. And this company that we hired is actually building one right now in the area. So.
The reason why I asked too is because residents may want to kind of get an idea for what that looks like. So go check out some of these other departments and see drive by and see what that building looks like. They're very nice buildings too. They do a really good job, and they integrate everything really well. Like you said, you've got communications right in the middle where that's the heart of everything, and then you've got your each department has its own sort of area and garages and so on and so forth.
And if it's done right, which I have no doubt it will be done right, it's a 40-year solution.
Right.
And that's it. And the needs are met by the community. Tyngsborough is continuing to grow quickly, and so we have to anticipate what the growth is going to be in that time period, and that's what other communities are doing as well. And then it's done, and construction costs are only going up.
Yeah, I know.
Other issues, other expenses are only going up, and there's a question: how much do you want to continue to spend on a older building that is faltering in many areas? And I think it's a very legitimate question to ask. So.
Unfortunately, the side effects of a good economy mean that construction costs continue to kind of either hold or rise, which is unfortunate for anybody who's trying to do a project. It's annoying actually, kind of. But you've mentioned before what are that you can't even upgrade. Or you don't want to upgrade certain systems, your communication center, for example, because you don't have the facility to really put it in properly, and you'd have to spend a ton of money retrofitting this old space to get this new equipment, where a new building you could just basically plan it and have it fit right in.
Correct. And communications is one area where our town we're still on analog. We're looking to go to digital systems. Over the last several years, we, along with the fire department, have started upgrading, for example, portable radios. And portable radios, very expensive.
Amazingly, yeah.
They run $2,000 and $2,500 a piece.
Jeez.
So over the last 3 years, through capital, we've replaced most of our portable radios for our officers. The fire department is doing the same. So eventually, when the town upgrades our entire system to digital, those will all be compatible. But there's needs in dispatch where we have communication consoles that are over 20 years old. The question is, they need to be replaced. Can they still be serviced? They can still be serviced now, but that's going to become more and more difficult. And when the upgrade comes, if we do it in the space we have, we're limited. We cannot put in the amount of consoles that we actually are supposed to have, which is more than the 2 that we do have.
Okay.
So in a new space, we can put in the consoles we have and be done, and have it done correctly and done right the first time. So obviously that's preferable.
What are kind of your, I mean, it's kind of hard, you're sort of in a guessing game at this point, but what are kind of like the ballpark estimates of what this is going to cost and look like to the taxpayers? I
have been, the range I've been given, and you're putting me in the spot, Steve. I'm not sure if I want to answer this. My understanding, typical range for a public safety building right now for our needs potentially is going to be in the $13 to $15 million range.
Okay.
I don't know if how far that's going to be off. There's a lot of other, obviously, factors that meet in. Land, if there's a need to buy
right, of course, that's
land,
all fluid,
all those type of things. But that's my understanding. That's the range typically for the size building that we would need for the growth of this community.
Okay, makes sense. And you're obviously going to be doing some of these other upgrades, like the dispatch and a number of other things. So that's going to kind of play into that. I think land is going to be a big one. Does can we talk about some of the locations that you guys have kind of eyeballed for this?
Well, I'm not going to talk specifics as far as one piece of land. There is a piece of land in on Westford Road.
Okay.
The town is looking at also the land that the town already owns, the Winslow School property, and this property where the town hall is being looked at as all potentials as part of the planning for the town on a wider basis.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, the town is looking for what's in the best interest of the community, and what makes the most sense financially, and from a standpoint of where does a public safety building go. The problem with building a public safety building is you're limited to, you're really constrained on the space. Fire trucks need a certain radius to turn.
Right,
You have to have a specific guideline as far as the pitch of the land, etc. Because there's certain areas where you want a fire truck, for example, not backing in and out of a spot. For example, they have to do on Kendall Road.
Right.
The correct standard is to actually have the fire truck drive through. So you want a rear entrance and a forward entrance. There's many other standards that I could talk an hour about, but the bottom line is the piece of property has to be the correct piece of property as well. It has to be large enough. My understanding, talking to the architects, a minimum of 6 acres is required for public safety.
That's a good sized piece of land.
8 is preferable, 8 or larger, and that's what we'll be looking at.
So at 6, you're kind of shoehorning it. At anything more is icing, basically icing on the cake. So that's interesting. So I'd be interested to see how that would play into potential reuse of the Winslow. You mentioned the Winslow School. It'd be kind of cool to see that finally get done with it. Whether it's rehabbing the building and making that a new town hall structure, and like you mentioned, maybe this area would be an interesting spot for a public safety. Does this, where town hall sits right now, does that have the acreage?
I don't
necessary?
know. I'm not really sure. I think it's a little small from what I understand, as is. So, and it would require a huge retrofit. So once again, that's what the architect firm is. I don't want to just sit here and give my opinions.
No, of course. Yeah.
The architect firm is hired to do that, is to give us an unbiased opinion on what would be the best, most economical, most feasible place to put a public safety building, based on the options that we've given them. And we think we've given them, 3 good choices, and where they can distinguish the difference and give us the information back. And then it's up to, the Board of Selectmen and the community to take a look at those and make some decisions.
Well, I think people will have their opportunity as well to voice their opinion on this in the master plan meeting this coming Wednesday, and then as the other meetings that continue after that, because that is something that's important. I mean, you have a 40-ish-year-old police department, you have almost a 60-plus-year-old fire department. Clearly, the needs of both departments have changed drastically in the last decade.
Definitely.
Not being able to meet up to certain standards and stuff because of your actual facility. That's a kind of a problem. So it's very I think it's very important. And I think for people to think about the cost of this, that's why I had asked you about the sort of rough cost, spread over, not that it's going to be spread over 40 years, but when you account for how long that building is going to be viable for, I mean, that's not a lot of money in that type of consideration. Especially considering what you get.
Yep.
So.
But again, and I'm a big believer in it. The more meetings, the better. And I'm looking forward to going to each one of them and explaining the need and articulating that, and we need to be able to answer those questions that people are going to have. It's at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money,
Right.
And it's not just enough just to say we need this, because you need to be able to give details and get down to each and every answer and have a valid answer. I believe we do. I know we do, and I'm confident of that, but I'm looking forward to those discussions.
Anybody who's watching, too, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to fire away and ask questions as you might see fit.
Please do. I love questions.
Yeah, questions are always fun. So that's one thing that's been going on, and I've been actually refreshing your page. But there was an incident. Can we talk about this at this point? Yeah. There was an incident happen. I'll let you tell the story, but it's a troubling one for sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to. It's not going to be on our page yet, our social media page, but there should be a press release going out. It should be out now. We had a stabbing last night at a residence in off of near Frost Road, and it basically came down to an internet sale and exchange that was made, and it went bad. And we have a suspect identified. We are currently looking for. We have numerous charges. The subject's name is Daquan Hagan. He's 19 years old, of Nashua, New Hampshire. He's wanted for armed robbery, home invasion, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, assault with a dangerous weapon, and malicious destruction of property over $1,200. We are working with our fellow departments in the area to locate this individual. We are confident that we will hopefully have him in custody very soon. And
so when I mentioned this in the opening, that there was a bit of a silver lining to this, excuse me, the piece that what I was referring to was the fact that you have already a year and almost 2 years ago now set up an internet meetup spot at the police department for people to make these transactions. Why they're not using it is beyond me. Because it seems like this is not the first time I've heard of this. In fact, this is probably the third or fourth that I can think of in recent memory where something like this has gone wrong for the person who was trying to sell something. They get robbed. In this case, he got stabbed. There is something at the police department. We're going to do a little video on this, but talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, the very reason we had this done. It's many departments have done it. It's called a meetup spot. We have one spot. We don't have a lot of room at the police department. We were just talking about a need for a public safety building.
Right.
We don't have a lot of parking, but we did. We allotted one parking spot. Actually, used to be an employee parking spot. There is a sign there. It says meetup spot, and it says right on the sign for internet exchanges. And it's meant to be a safe area. It's on video from the police department's cameras. And if you decide you're going to sell something on the internet, and it's not necessarily a very good idea to bring somebody to your home to do that.
Right.
So we're offering a public place to do that in. Which is obviously a much safer area to do that. So I urge people to use it. It's it's right in front of the police station. If the spot's not available, you can park anywhere. Do it right at the police station. But I don't know why people wouldn't. Do it.
Well, like you said, it's a safe, neutral location. You don't want to bring them to your house. I mean, I don't know why anybody would even consider doing that in the first place, unless it was like something that was, I don't know, a playground. I did that once for a playground, actually, so I guess I can see that. I can see a reason for it. But at the same time, it's a safe, neutral place. Right. If you're selling anything, you don't know who you're coming across on the internet. You have no idea who this person is. I was just reading something on one of the Tyngsborough talk page about a woman who was soliciting stuff over Facebook to try to get donations for families in the holiday season, and it turns out she's a scumbag and is doing this to rip people off and then reselling the stuff that she gets people donating to her for this cause. So you just don't know. So you find a good safe spot. Use the police drop-off location. Are there other departments that have done this, or is Tyngsborough unique?
I think there's many others. Yeah. I mean, this is a national program that we joined, and so it's a great program. Easy, it's easy to do. And even if we didn't have the sign, obviously it's a public place. You're always better off meeting at a public place. If it's in front of a package store or restaurant or somewhere else other than your home, I would highly recommend it. You just don't know. And you know what? The fact is that most people are good people. Most people are honest people. But the unknown factor, why risk it and bring somebody to your home to do that?
Well, at this day and age, you can't take any chances. I mean, like you said, you don't want to bring them to your home. You have your family there, your stuff. You don't know if they're coming to case your location and whatever, rob you later or who knows what. But you don't know what's in people's heads basically. So just be careful, and use these. Avail yourself of these services because they're there for you.
So I do want to add, and just before we close up on this, that the victim did sustain serious injuries, but they were med-flighted to a hospital in Boston where they had surgery last night. They are in stable condition. And so, we're very happy, obviously, about that outcome, and we are looking for the suspect at this
Excellent. Time. Well, there you go, folks. There's some breaking news on what just happened. Was this last night? You said
last night.
Last night. Okay, so yeah, some very very breaking news. I'm always curious to see the collaboration between. So you have obviously police and fire where you work together with this, and our EMS goes, but then you also contact the Boston MedFlight folks to come out. And then they come and grab this guy. How does that all work?
Well, in this situation, actually, sometimes for speed need to get somebody right to a hospital, they were transported to Lowell General Hospital.
Oh,
and
okay.
from there, they were
that.
med-flighted to Boston, and that does happen quite often.
Okay.
When there is a need, if there's a serious motor vehicle accident, we will do whatever we need to. We have shut down, Route 3's been shut down. We landed a med flight in the middle of Route 3.
Wow, really?
We're in the middle of Westford Road. We just passed the mobile station. There's a big area right there. Obviously, the helicopters are limited to where they can land. Some of our zones where we can land them, elementary school, the fields right there, high school fields, those type of areas. So,
and luckily this doesn't happen often, but it's nice to know that when it is needed, you have this all planned out. You're ready to go.
You have a very well-trained fire department and police department who are ready for these types of incidents. I've watched many times. The fire department is right on when these incidents happen, and the need for med flight comes in. It's all hands-on, and everybody has a role, and everybody knows what to do, and it's very quick. And anybody that's ever seen it, it is very impressive. And I know there's people in this community, I know personally, who have had loved ones involved in very serious car accidents, and they've been very quickly taken out on med flights and who saved their life, got them to Boston, and it's amazing how quickly it's done.
We've talked a bit before about the uniqueness of Tyngsborough in that we have so many high schools, and we have the highway that goes through it, and all these other major routes that travel through. How does the highway itself play into your planning, I guess, in terms of like if something happens on the highway, is it Tyngsborough Police that immediately rushes out there, or is it the state police that handle that? Is there a handoff?
Well, I hear a lot that we're the biggest small town around here.
Yeah,
because of our location. And
That's true.
It is unique. We are a unique location, unique population. But we predominantly state police obviously have jurisdiction on the highway, but it's no different. It's town of Tyngsborough, so. We take that role as well. If there's serious car accidents, fire department responds up there with fire trucks, etc., ambulance. We work hand in hand with the state police. Quite often they're tied up somewhere else. They have, they're limited in their coverage, so they may not be able to respond. But the fire department definitely does for anything immediately. The police department initial cruiser gets up there, and depending on how much help the state police has available, we will investigate or we will clear once state police arrives.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
it's kind of a handoff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on a brighter note, you had a couple new reserve officers get appointed.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
I had their names here. I lost the page, but that was really good to know. So we talked about this the last time you were on. That brings you back up to a full allotment of how many reserve officers you keep on.
Reserve officer Ahern and Silva. Yep. The goal is to keep on 6 to 7 reserve officers, and as we anticipate some retirements the upcoming year, we need to keep that staffing up because that's where we're going to likely hire from to fill those full-time spots. So we're looking for reserve officers. We only hire reserve officers that are at the very least part-time certified or full-time certified. I'm amazed at how many more people we have come in now that have put themselves through a full-time police academy at their own expense, and it's very simply gives them a huge leg up on everybody else. It's very competitive. There's a huge cost for the community to hire somebody and then send them to the academy 6 months. At the end of the day, we're looking for the best candidate regardless, but that is it's a huge factor that we can't look away from.
Now, can these reserve officers do duties in other departments, or are they specific to Tyngsborough? Do they have to stick with Tyngsborough?
So when we hire reserve officers, one of the rules I have as chief is they have to be dedicated just to our community.
Okay.
It just doesn't work. We need them to be available. And most of the reserve officers that we hire, they typically have other jobs, at the very least other part-time jobs or full-time jobs, but they're looking to become police officers. And that's also what we have is a system where we're only hiring reserve officers who want to be full-time police officers. Okay. That's the whole goal of the program. But no, they need to be here. We certainly have special officers that we hire, retired officers that have retired in good standing from other departments. A lot of those officers work for multiple departments as specials. totally different scenario. So.
Okay, interesting. And for folks who are still interested, or are interested rather, in being a police officer, do you still continually accept applications?
Absolutely.
Do you okay.
Send a resume, letter of intent to Deputy Chief Woods, Sean Woods, and we will probably have another test, I would assume, sometime over the next 6 months or so, probably this fall. We're still working on last year's list, but I expect that to be exhausted by springtime.
Okay.
When we'll be probably hiring a couple more reserves, and then we'll be looking to test again.
What are so obviously you'd hope they would go through the academy. Does that sort of take care of your like minimum requirements? So you have to be able to lift so much, run so fast, in certain shape, I guess, let's say physical shape, things like that, be able to shoot straight, obviously.
Well, shooting is actually not the requirement because we can teach somebody to do that.
Okay.
There's certain physical standards that obviously it's expected.
Mm-hmm.
When we do our testing, so if we bring in, we have I think it was 70 people tested last year.
Oh, wow, 70 people.
70.
Wow.
And Deputy Chief Woods took a lead role in that. We have several people within the department that took a role, and they put on we have a written test. We have a company that administers that, and then we administer the physical test. The physical tests are based on what's called the Cooper standards, which is a standard level of fitness in Massachusetts for police officers, and it's based on male or female, and then by age.
Okay.
So there's certain standards. You have to be able to do a certain amount of push-ups and run a certain amount, etc.
Okay.
So it's very standardized, and obviously it's a minimum. In order to pass our test, we use the same tests that are expected.
Interesting. I'd be curious to see those. I'm always curious to see what I could do. So
I'd like to see you take it next time. I'll do it along with you.
Okay. We'll see how we do. Yours will probably be better because you have a little more age on me, so you'll have a better.
I don't know if my running would be better.
Awesome. So what else is going on in the department these days?
We are just like everyone else. We're preparing for the new year coming up, new fiscal year, budget season's on us
good times
already, and so we're busy doing that. We have we're working on our recertification for our department, which we expect to bring forward this spring, and then that'll be followed up by moving toward full accreditation. For the upcoming year, we have we anticipate, as I told you, at least 2 retirements. So that's brings on whole additional issues of hiring more people, training more people, etc. So we got to prepare for that. We have a department-wide shift bid coming up, so officers get to bid for new shifts coming up in July and those kind of things. So that's a yearly function. So
interesting.
Yep.
Let me just quickly reset, just so everybody knows you're watching Tyngsborough TV Live. This is our Friday wrap-up. My guest is Chief Rich Howe. We've been chatting about a number of things, including some of the breaking news that just happened with the incident last night. So you can rewind the video and rewatch that part if you want to catch up on what's been going on, or read the press release as that comes out. I'm still waiting on the website to update that, but I'm sure it'll be up soon. But you can catch this broadcast on the multitude of places we share it out through YouTube, Facebook, on the various pages I put it out on, as well as on Comcast Channel 8, Verizon 29, and at tyngsboroughma.gov. Any questions, feel free to put them in on the Facebook or YouTube comments. I'll be happy to ask them of the chief or whoever my guest may be, or of myself. And you can email me questions, sbrogan@tyngsboroughma.gov, if there's some issue that you want me to try to get an answer for. I usually try to do the best I can and see if I can get answers. I can't always get answers to them, but I do the best I can and ask the various departments who may be associated with. So, Mike, I was going to ask you a question and I totally just lost it. I know what it was now. So we've been talking about budget and obviously you have the push for a new public safety building. What are some of like the some of the bigger capital requests aside from the public safety thing that you guys are going to be looking for in the upcoming budget season? New cruisers.
So for us, and for us, the police cruisers are in our general budget, operating budget. So it's not a capital request. We are looking to continue. We have some more upgrades as far as radios, portable radios, cruiser radios. There's a lot of requests that I've asked for every year, and I push up every year. They all revolve around our building. Whether it's the structure itself, the building, the parking lot, the jail cells, communications, etc. And they're all pretty big items. And what we've tried to do is continue this conversation for a public safety building and push those items forward. And obviously, there's only so long we continue to push them forward. But that's what we're looking to continue to do as we move forward and have this discussion, real discussion about a public safety building. So.
You know, we've sort of briefly we've talked about this in the past, but some of the things that have changed since you become since you started your police career till now, how has that sort of affected needs of the building? So like cameras in jail cells and things like that. That probably didn't exist when you started, or in a very rudimentary way. How does some of that stuff kind of evolved?
Well, there's certain standards. Having audio access to a prisoner and the constant checks and et cetera. And those are all things that make a lot of sense, obviously, and should happen. Weren't necessarily all requirements as they are now. So there's certain, I think the biggest differences are in communication and some of the federal and state guidelines that go to that. And then, just the building itself, obviously, we don't have central air in the building, so it's a problem with a lot of air conditioners popping in and out of windows and et cetera. So I mean, I go into a lot of different areas, but needless to say, it doesn't handle the function of a police department our size anymore. It just doesn't, and that is something we just got to continue to work on and move forward.
One of the things that struck me the first time I went into the department was there's like literally wall air conditioners, these window air conditioners rather, sticking out of like every other window. What is going on in here? How come you don't have central air? Like, you guys, I feel bad. And, it's just funny. So it definitely proves the point for you guys really do need an updated space.
There's issues, for example, the booking area, et cetera, the safety issues. It just doesn't meet the standards for safety, and that's a huge issue for me, and it can't be retrofitted the way it is. There's not enough room for training in the building. There's not enough parking spaces, inadequate.
It can be tough even just walking into that building because of that hill and the parking and
So there's a lot, but and I don't want to come off as sounding as being critical either. When that building was done, Chief Charlie Chronopoulos, who I adore, and he led the charge on that and rallied the community to donate. And my understanding is just about all of the money that was needed came from donations.
Wow.
And
that's incredible.
Very little public tax money was used to build that building. And there's a lot of people who swung hammers and laid electrical line and did plumbing that live and work in this town that worked in that building. And that's everybody should be proud of that. That's incredible. But it was 31 years ago, and so 32 years ago now, and it's time. And it's certainly a building that the town can use for other purposes, sell it, and I'm very hopeful that in the next 2 or 3 years we can get this thing going and move forward and do what many other communities have done that are smaller than us. But the way we're growing, et cetera, the need is just becoming more and more each year. So.
I would argue that your two departments are the busiest departments in town, next to administration maybe, and it's to not do that or to put it off any further, it just doesn't make sense to me anyways. I don't know, from a rational standpoint, just looking at it realistically, it just makes sense.
I look at
especially considering the cost if you try to band-aid the building you have now.
No, I think you're throwing good money after bad.
Right.
Is my opinion, and I think it's well documented. That's what would be happening. But I think we've done a good job not soaking in a ton of money, knowing that this is the goal. We're trying to build a public safety building. And again, I'll reemphasize, it's on us to explain to the community why we need this. And I'm very confident that we can, but we need to be very clear what the reasons are. And this is a community building, and that's again why I think a public safety building versus standalone departments make more sense for this community. And everything I've seen, convinces me that that's the correct way to go.
Makes sense. I want to talk for a second about dispatch, because you mentioned that the building can't meet the standards for dispatch as it is now. I'm still awestruck that dispatchers can do what they can do with all of the screens. If you've ever had a chance to go into the police department, look inside into dispatch, that glass window in front of you. Just look at all of the monitors that they're looking at. Yeah. It's incredible, like that they can keep it up. So what, I guess on that note, what are the minimum requirements for dispatch nowadays?
The answer's too big to give you, but
really?
their requirements, just from a very simple standpoint, obviously, they're responsible for answering the phones. They're responsible for answering 911, communicating with the police, the fire department, town ambulance, med flights we were just talking about, their response to that. Then there's issues of reporting, what their responsibilities are reporting. Space is a huge issue where we have 2 consoles. We should have a minimum of 3 consoles.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at, right?
Yeah, we simply don't. It's an impossibility with the layout. There's
just no room in there. Right?
No, there's no room to do it, and it would just be it just wouldn't work with the current layout. So there's not enough work. With that said, we've used the space, I think, the best we can. We've made some good changes. We've put the computer room down in that space. We've moved the 911 room. We've adapted and we've changed and we've moved and I don't want to make this sound like a complain fest, and that's not what this is.
No, of course.
So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to use the building the best we can and do what we need to do to meet whatever standards come our way.
I don't think it sounds like complaining at all. These are realistic needs that you need to meet in order to meet modern standards. Now, why the 3 consoles? Is it because in case one console is
just
on
based
fire?
Well, you have 2 consoles. We typically, our goal is to have 2 dispatchers on days and evenings, and at all times. Doesn't always work that way, and for a lot of reasons, but that's our staffing. And so if you look at, for example, I'll give you a new one that's coming down the line. That we now are going to have text 911, text messaging 911. Yeah. Our dispatchers, to be blunt, are it's a difficult thing because you're not just going to disconnect on a 911 call anyway, and under any circumstances. So now imagine you're texting with somebody over 911, and you're by yourself in that communications. And so, and at the same time, there's a medical going on somewhere, and the police are calling you, and the fire department's calling you, or you need to roll up med flight. How do you do that all at once? So there's obviously there's issues with that in that space, and we're supposed to have a backup. So if there is a large emergency in the community or anything else, that third space, which we have needed for, we've had blizzards, we've had large emergencies in the community. We've had to bring a third dispatcher in. And what we did is we set up a temporary console, basically just a phone and a computer. They don't have a 911 dispatch console. Okay. As I said, there just isn't the room or right now the money to support that as well. So
when I heard about the texting 911 thing, I was like, how exactly is that going to work? Because I think about instances where I've been trying to explain something to, say, my wife, how to make a certain dish or vice versa. I can't do it over text without, it takes you 10 minutes just to type out a very simple set of instructions. It just doesn't really work. It's not conducive to. And
our dispatchers already, we obviously take 911s through TTY for the hearing impaired. So there's a lot of different issues, and I think 911, the text messaging is just a natural progression of our society.
I mean, it makes sense.
It doesn't surprise me, but it's just another layer that's put on our communication people that they have to now deal with. It's occupying 100% of their time. So the question is, if we can't maintain 2 dispatchers working all the time, how does that dispatcher do that? Because there's other things going on other than just that, typically on any given moment. So, but I say it all the time. We are very lucky. We have a great group of people, and I've brought Wally.
Wally and her crew do an amazing job.
Who's our chief dispatcher? She does a phenomenal job. Before her, Glenna Greenslade, God rest her soul. I obviously I became very close with Glenna, and Wally was a great choice to replace her, and she does a great job. But they're doing what they can do with the limited space we have, but no different than anywhere else. And you do the best you can with what you have, and that's what we're doing.
Right.
We will continue to do that.
You'll adapt and overcome.
At the same time, we, will look to improve. And one major way to improve and to bring us to where we need to be would be a new public safety building. With that, we're going to have that. We're going to upgrade our equipment. We're going to get where we need to be in 2019, and where we'll need to be in 2025 and 2030. That's the goal. And by doing this all at once, we'll have accomplished that. And I think that's the biggest thing to kind of look at. It's a long-term investment. This isn't a short-term fix. It's a long-term investment for the community.
Shameless plug for a new public safety building.
Very shameless.
It's okay. I actually want to mention, while we were talking about 911 and the texting thing brought up something that just happened last week, was the fact that 911 went down for a little while.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if that was just the cellular, if it was all 911. I wasn't able to get any really good answer on that, but it's a good time to program the police business line into your phone. So, heaven forbid 911 goes out for the random reason that it seemed to go out for, you'll at least be able to call the business line, which will always be active provided the phone lines are still working. You can at least call through that. So it's a good time to program that number in there and just to have it, because you never know what's going to happen. And who knows if texting will even work. Texting would probably go down if cell phone service goes down. So, you want to have that backup to where you can call and get through.
978-649-7504.
There you go.
Bring us to any of our business lines. That was apparently a national issue, with the national carrier that controls much of 911 in the country, or I don't know how big of a region it was affecting, but it was, I guess, a very large region. So
it affected quite a few things, and you're right, it was national across the board. But it even there was effects to like government websites, and all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, it's really strange. And then it kept going up and down. So I kept trying to post about it, and it would be like, oh, it's up again, cool, it's working now. And then you'd hear a few minutes later, it's down again. Like, all right, I don't want to keep posting and messing with people. So let's just post that it's down until further notice, and when it comes back up officially, it'll work or whatever. But hopefully there weren't too many 911 needs.
And I do want to remind,
scary.
I do want to remind people that over the last year, we did opt in to direct for cell phones, and that technology wasn't always available in the past. As we've talked about, if you used your cell phone and you called 911, for example, if you were anywhere in Tyngsborough, it was either going to go to Hillsborough County and bounce off, go to their regional, or it was going to go to Framingham State Police Regional. And so what would happen is that they needed to get your information. They needed to relay it back to us, so there's a huge delay. Now we've opted in to this new technology. So anywhere except basically the highway, Route 3, in that area, it's not a perfect science. So if you're near the highway, that will go to a tower that's going to relay to one of the regional sites. Most other locations in Tyngsborough, your cell phone hitting 911 will actually go right to our dispatch, which saves a lot of time.
An immense amount of time.
Minutes.
And confusion too, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great use of technology and improvement of technology. So,
do you have other communities opted into this as well?
I think many communities. So the police chief in each community can opt in. One of the negatives obviously is we're going to get more calls directly, but ultimately, the way we look at it, we're going to get the calls regardless, whether it's through transfer or not. So it just kind of made sense.
That does make sense. I mean, where seconds count, you need those seconds to get out there. So, lots of interesting stuff we've talked about today between what just happened last night, public safety needs, public safety building, and 911, and just some of these other different things that are going on. Again, don't forget to program those numbers 978-649-7504 into your phones. That is the Tyngsborough Police business line, so that will get you right through to them in the event that 911 isn't working. So obviously you'd call 911.
And Steve,
first.
I just want to, before I go, I just want to remind people. Over the last week, we probably had 2 or 3 people make complaints about something going on, suspicious vehicles. I think 2 of them were suspicious vehicles. And they sent an email in, or they sent a message over Facebook or Twitter. That is not the correct way. We appreciate, obviously, you contacting us at all, but please, we emphasize, those are not monitored. Email, Twitter, Facebook, although we're very active on our social media, they're not monitored. Pick up a phone, please, and call it in. I don't know how much time went by before those calls came in, but one was about a suspicious vehicle. And, if something had happened, it would have gone unnoticed. And certainly whatever was going to happen would have happened, because it went to somebody's email address versus pick up the phone and call our business line, please, and make that complaint. You can stay anonymous if you don't want your name known, and that's never an issue. But just please call.
Let me ask you this question, because I've had to call 911 before, and they always want to know my name. And I always wondered, why do they need to know who I am when I'm just calling to let you know that XYZ is happening?
Dispatchers are trained to get as much information as possible.
Okay.
There's a safety issue, and we're required. So if you call 911, regardless of whether it's a hang-up purposely, you're on accident, child playing with the phone, etc., we're required to check on that residence. That is a requirement.
Okay.
And the dispatcher is going to tell you that we are, even if you tell them repeatedly, please don't come to the house, I'm all set, we're coming anyways. We have to. That's part of how our officers are trained. That's part of their training as dispatchers. With that said, the more information they get, the easier it is to communicate to the police officers who are responding to these residents. So they're looking to speak to Steve Brogan, who they just spoke to. He said everything's fine. He's wearing a blue shirt. He's going to come out and meet you outside. They may ask to, can we see everybody else in the house? There's been many incidents where 911 gets cut off because somebody's being assaulted inside, potentially a domestic situation, and that victim is not able to get near a phone anymore, and the eventual suspect or accused, the perpetrator, comes out, meets the police, tells them everything's fine, and bad things happen. So what's happened, the evolution of that is that police now, there's a requirement in place that no, we're going to check on everybody. Is everybody okay? Is there anybody else in the house with you? There's going to be questions. So they're asking questions just to gather more information.
Okay, makes sense. I just always wondered, because I'm like, well, why do you need to know who I am? If I'm just letting you know that my neighbor is like burning his house down or something, I don't know.
At the end of the day, people can call and they can still be anonymous they want. But if you call 911, obviously expect a response.
How does, and you might not know this off the top of your head, but how does Tyngsborough's call volume compare to other communities around us? Are we higher, lower, kind of on average?
Depends on the community. Yeah. For our size community, we're typically high. We're on the high end, so we're a very active department. Okay. A lot of that's based on location. So we're in between two, Lowell and Nashua, two cities which have 110,000 population. So naturally we're a community that we have a heavy traffic volume, etc. So our call volume tends to be higher.
Okay, I was going to ask you what plays into that, but that makes sense. Where we have some major routes, the highway, the big roads that go through, the big communities. That does actually make pretty good sense. So interesting. All right, well that I think that pretty much wraps it up for me. Anyways, I don't have too many other questions unless you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Hope you had a good New Year's. Did you do anything fun?
No.
No. I went to bed early. I didn't even see the ball drop. It was kind of pathetic.
Spent some time with some friends and my wife, and just relaxed.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, glad to hear it. Excellent. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys got some good info out of this. Don't forget you can watch us on the multitude of places we put it out on. It'll be broadcasting later on Comcast 8, Verizon 29. It also is on Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch it there anytime you want. And at tyngsboroughma.gov on demand and streaming service. Again, any questions for me, sbrogan@tyngsboroughma.gov. You can email, or you can also send messages in through Facebook if you would like as well. That's always fine. Don't forget, program the police department's business line in your phone right next to 911. You can put multiple contacts in one contact. 978-649-7504. Obviously, don't call that if you have an emergency. You call 911 first. But if 911 is busy, or if it actually, I'll ask you a question about that before we wrap up. I just thought of something. If 911 is down, call the business line. Or if it's a non-emergency, obviously. Can 911 be busy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So we have two trunks. Again, we have two consoles. So we have two trunk lines.
Okay.
So it has been busy. What will happen is it will get rerouted. Typically to a regional dispatch, state police dispatch.
So it'll get bounced to one of the other. Okay, good. Yes. So you'll never actually get a full busy, and nobody's going to pick up.
No.
Okay.
No, and then that will have to be rerouted, obviously, back to us.
Excellent. All right. There you go. So that as we talk, things just kind of pop in, just kind of the way conversation goes sometimes. So anyways, thanks everybody for watching. Again, questions, email, feel free, Facebook and all those other things, you can send them in through. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe on our pages. That helps to get these videos out that much further. Facebook, the way they work with their algorithms, the more people that interact with your stuff, the more people will see it in their news feeds had they liked it in the past. And obviously, if you like it, you'll see our stuff. And if you interact, you'll see these things pop up in your page. So it's cool to be able to get this stuff out to the community. Obviously, very important information, I think, and I'm sure the chief would agree. And any issues that you want me to try to find any answers to, like I said, feel free to send them in. Email me, sbrogan@tyngsboroughma.gov, or you can put them in the comment section. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We got some kind of crummy weather coming up in the next, it's always raining on Saturdays. I can never seem to get any yard work done. Like the weather just works against me, but it's going to be kind of crummy on Saturday, but it looks like the rest of the week's going to be okay until next, I think, Tuesday or something. There's some snow in the forecast, but we'll see. It's too far out to talk about that just yet. So have a great weekend, everybody.
Take
it easy.
Stay safe.
We'll see you next time. Bye.